She's also an astronaut in training. She's collected over 180 gold and platinum SELS awards in over 40 countries. She's Sarah Brightman, and I had the chance to sit down with Sarah to talk about her career, her dreams, and also her bond with China.
Sarah Brightman, soprano, performer, creator, actress, goodwill ambassador. Sarah starred in several Broadway musicals, including The Phantom of the Opera, in which Andrew Lloyd Webber was inspired to create the iconic role of Christine, specifically for Sarah. The Phantom of the Opera went on to become the most successful musical of all time, with its 25th anniversary seeing Sarah make a special appearance during the unprecedented finale at the Royal Albert Hall.
Now, looking back in those years when you were in the theatre doing Cats and The Phantom of the Opera, lots of us actually started to know you from those days and you all these great nights. But looking back, how would you evaluate, say, the significance of those years that you spent in theatre?
I think they were incredibly important in that, well, not only that I was lucky enough to have worked with, one of the, probably, I would say, one of the most sort of prolific composers of our time, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and to have been in his pieces to start with. I mean, that was an amazing thing to be involved with, and to watch the process of that happening in rehearsals right from the beginning. Also to be a muse of particular musicals that he wrote. I mean, that was a very wonderful experience, and to be performing in those for a short time. It was a very creative time of my life, but I think had it not been for that time, I wouldn't have gone on to have the career that I have, in that I wouldn't have necessarily had the experience or the know-how to create a solo performer's arena, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you're quite an explorer, and if you looking back at those early years, and you started as a group dancer, and then in Hot Gossip, and then you moved on to the
Theatre.
Musicals, and then later on in the 90s, your solo career as a solo artist. It seems somehow it's one thing led to another. I mean, it seems everything happened orderly in a natural way. How do you see the journey now, the links between each other?
It's been an amazing journey. It's been tough at times, and I've had negative feelings which I can put aside now, because I can see that actually sort of just going forward. I think in many ways we're all given, judging from our talents and what it is that we can do in life, we're sort of we're all given a destiny, and it's understanding what that may be from moment to moment, from week to week, from year to year. And it's about understanding your gift, whatever that may be, and pursuing it, and understanding that a dream sometimes is something that might not be a reality, but a little of that could be. So it's just understanding what's going on around you, understanding yourself, your family, your parents, what's gone before, what could be in the future, and thinking of everything parallel, all at the same time. And it's very important always to think clearly. And it's important to take time so that you can think clearly, because then your path is better. And I may be talking in a very abstract way at this moment, but that's the person I am.
Over the years, Sarah has achieved numerous #1 Billboard chart accolades and awards, and is the only artist ever to have simultaneously held the top position in both classical and dance, demonstrating her impressive stylistic diversity. Sarah continues to be one of the world's most prominent performers, with over 180 gold and platinum awards from over 40 countries, including Japan, Mexico, Canada, United States, China, Latin America, Australia and Europe, and combined worldwide sales surpassing 30 million units.
In the 80s, you had your success on stage in the musicals, and in the 90s, you started to move your focus from the stage to be a solo artist.
Yes.
I guess in those years, after all these successful moments, and you were in a better position to think more clearly, say, about your dreams. And did your dreams change at the time, from your childhood, from early days?
I actually feel very much the personality that I was since I was quite small. I don't think too much. I mean, obviously I've changed as into an adult and with experience. But my whole sort of centre of my life, I feel has been about it's a two-way thing. It's about it's the physical and the metaphysical. It's the practical and it's the non-practical, going for something that doesn't quite feel real. That have actually they've melted together in a beautiful way for me. So it's going those two ways. So my dreams and my goals which have been practical and impractical, if you like, have actually merged together for me in a very wonderful way. So my life has been incredibly textured. I think for me it's very much thinking. I work very hard. That's the practical side. That's the very physical side. But at the same time, running alongside of that, I have a huge imagination. And when those two come together, they make that perfect line for you to go towards. And that's how I work. That's why, and I give myself always in my mind to be imaginative and to have a huge amount of freedom in that area. And although that might be incredibly expansive and be too much to actually come into the practical, a section of it will, which is a beautiful thing.
Just look at where you are, because you've sold over, I don't know, 30, 40 million copies of your albums the world over, and won 180 gold or platinum records awards in so many countries. When you look at these figures, these numbers, how do you feel? You feel proud?
You know, it's lovely that people, when you put a lot into what you do and your art, it's wonderful. The great thing about the people are enjoying what you're doing. They're listening. So, yes, it is. I know that people are out there enjoying what I'm enjoying, and that's the good thing.
We have to know who you are, what you've done to the site, to invite you actually to the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympic Games.
Which was so much fun.
And
yes.
I was there. I was the announcer actually for the opening ceremony.
I know all about you.
Were you terrified actually, by the fact you had to stand that high?
Actually, my dream was to fly.
She has collaborated with many of the world's top opera and classical artists, including Andrea Bocelli, Placido Domingo, Nigel Kennedy, Jose Cura, Jose Carreras, and Josh Groban, as well as a diverse array of other musical talent from Cliff Richard, Ofra Haza, Antonia Banderas, Paul Stanley, Sophie B. Hawkins to Jackie Evancho. Her duet, Time to Say Goodbye with Andrea Bocelli, became an international success, selling over 12 million copies worldwide, giving the Tuscan tenor's career a global jumpstart. Sarah Brightman continues to expand her career into other creative disciplines, including feature films. She made her first major film debut in Repo, the Genetic Opera, followed by leading roles in Amalfi and recently First Night opposite Richard E. Grant.
You're a crossover artist, but not only between different genres. You're actually crossing over to different areas. As you mentioned, about the film production. I've been, you know, are you seriously starting your acting career?
I like to challenge myself, so I started doing these movies and actually love doing them. I love independent movies, and the idea of being in independent movies always interests me.
What's the part you enjoyed most in doing movies?
I did this movie called Repo, the Genetic.
Exactly. You're still the opera singer.
Yes.
Right.
But it was set in the future, which I always love. And it was actually set in an incredibly dark world, but there were various characters within it which were positive forces. And having been pulled into a dark world and then recognised it as the character and then become a positive force, and in fact losing my life as the character in it, and that doing good. It was a beautiful part to play. It was a deep part. It was a crazy, crazy movie, but actually the whole idea of it was wonderful, and it's become a cult.
So it's like on stage as a singer, you were pretty much interpreting your own stories, well, or your understanding of the themes. Well, in movies, it seems you had the chance to actually interpret different roles, different stories, different faiths, let's say, put it that way. But somehow, I can't really help going back to the point you mentioned. You're pretty much an explorer. It seems, you know, after a few years, you would decide to move away just from your comfort zone. And sometimes it could be risky. I mean, to be sitting comfortably in your comfort zone and nothing would change, but you can enjoy your time. Everything is guaranteed. What is the biggest push in your case to move away from your comfort zone to new areas?
I think if sometimes you don't move away from your comfort zone, life does it for you. That's how I think.
Anyway.
It's going to happen anyways. And you know, and I think that we, in our life, in our comfort zones, it's a wonderful thing. But I think as human beings, naturally, we always have to be on our toes. It's very, very important. And thinking onwards. Holding the past with us, because the past is important because we learn from it, but always thinking onwards, because that's our mission in life. Is to experience it. And I mean, I'm very much like that with everything that I do. There's no point in me, because I'm an interpreter of music, there's no point in me interpreting a piece of great music unless I can bring something new to it. There's a good reason for me to be doing it. Either it suits my voice, it's in my being, it's in my imagination, I can see what the end result for it could be. And it's like that with everything. It has to be threaded from who you are and what you've done in your life.
Exactly. I mean, we have to know who you are, what you've done to decide to invite you actually to the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympic Games.
Which was so much fun.
And
yes.
I was there. I was the announcer actually for the opening ceremony.
I know all about you.
Oh, you did your homework as much as I did about you.
Yeah.
So, what was the experience like to be standing on that Earth-shaped stage? It was 24 meters high in the sky.
It was actually incredible. In fact, I'd only come in, I think, from the airport that day. I'd come in from Germany, I think, and we actually had our first rehearsal secretly that evening. We had to do it late at night. I was sort of told what was going to happen, but I wasn't quite sure because everything was top secret. So I went to this sort of very deep underground sort of level in the ground, and it was very hot down there. It was a whole city happening and lots of movement and people, as you know. And then a sort of plank was put across onto what looked like just a mound coming out of the ground. I didn't know what was below it. And when I walked across this plank, it took a few workmen to put it together, and got myself, and we were tied up, and I had my microphone on and everything. And suddenly everyone said, "It's fine, you're just going to rise up into the air." Suddenly we rise up into the sky, and I realise what is underneath me and what's going on. And all of these dancers are dancing on this globe around, and it's moving around a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. And I just start to go and perform in the way that I know, and that was the first rehearsal. So it was all a surprise. I
mean, talking about keeping it confidential, they did a great job, because
I
had no idea about who were going to sing the theme song, and until, you know, the first night, the first open rehearsal.
Yes, I didn't really go out for 2 weeks.
Right.
I was,
But it's worth
but
it,
that was
right?
it was worth it. Actually, it was fine because I had lots of things to do, and so it was fine. And actually, it was nice to sort of focus in on one thing for a change.
It's a massive stadium with an audience of 100,000 people inside the stadium, but the whole show was being watched by 4 billion people
Exactly.
around the world.
And believe me, you could feel that. You could feel everybody. It was the most beautiful thing. And also that, you know, it was a clear sky that night. Everything was absolutely perfect. It was very still, the weather, and you could almost hear everything. And
Were you
it
nervous?
was joyous. No.
More excited?
I was excited. I didn't want to lose the moment because I understood how important it was, because it was, and often important things aren't necessarily joyous, but this truly was. It was like a feeling of togetherness and one of the most positive experiences I've had in my performing life.
Were you terrified, actually, you know, by the fact you had to stand that high?
I knew there was a height because it had been explained to me and asked before I even came over, are you scared of heights? And if there's anything I'm not scared of is height.
I mean,
it's what I do. I fly.
Exactly. Right? We see you so much flying, dangling anyway on swings.
Actually, my dream was to fly.
That's why you have this space mission now.
Yes.
Right.
And I used to dream a lot of flying and floating.
How did it come into being, man?
My father was interested in flying, and so was my uncle. And so from an early age, I took in the information that I got from them.
Принял.
I think I was 8 at the time, and seeing, obviously at that time, we're talking about, you know, first man on the moon. I remember watching it on television, and something flipped.
Телевизор включено. Принял на помосте, выдвинуть помост, отпусти.
I'd been quiet and reticent as a child, and suddenly my mind opened, and I thought, I want to do something very, very special. I want to go there, where they are. I want to go up. I actually want to go up into space. That moment, things changed. Say, what is your real goal? What is it that you really would like to do? It seemed so unrealistic and crazy at the time, but actually this is what I've always wanted to do, and I suddenly saw that it was possible. Scientist. I'm a normal person. I don't know how I'm going to react to things. If I thought back then and thought this would be me in the future, I wouldn't believe it. But I feel absolutely ready.
60, 80. Very good.
I cannot believe that this is happening. I'm here.
It was made a decision.
Известный в мире
изъявил желание.
You are approved for the special spaceflight training. You have been approved for this.
Рекомендации.
Next steps.
I was always outward looking, and I think being a soprano, it sort of all ties in, because being a soprano, it's about the voice and your thought and your whole sort of being has to be outwards. It's about giving, it's about going outwards, it's about projection. So the idea of flight, and I used to dream a lot of flying and floating, flying a lot in night skies.
How did it come into being, man? Did it just happen all of a sudden? And it seems you've been training for this day for all the years, you know, but how did it exactly happen?
My father was interested in flying, and so was my uncle. And so from an early age, I took in the information that I got from them. We also lived near small airfields where there was a lot of flights going on. There was a new airport built. There was an old war airfield called Bovingdon. There was a gliding site where people would glide. And in fact, my father used to glide. So, and he was very interested in weather, as well as ornithology, birds and the flight of birds, where they went to. So I took in a lot of information at that time from him, and it fed my imagination.
So it is pretty much an influence from your father.
I think so, a lot of it. He also used to take me to a lot of air shows when I was very young as well. So, you know, I got the understanding of sort of the feeling of mechanics just by sitting in a Spitfire, for example, that was grounded, and just I remember being very excited by it and the mechanics of it, and what it suggested that one could do with flight in that sort of in a tougher way. And in fact, when in the 1980s I did some training in Harrier jump jet.
Yeah.
So I understood got a better understanding of G-force. And later on in my life, I also took many flights on Concorde. I spent a lot of my money that I was working hard for.
3-4 hours from the UK to America.
Yes.
Right, that's...
And it was an amazing machine. And I remember every flight I used to take on it, I wasn't interested in eating or having a drink as all the people were sitting there, or the businessmen in there. I would just sit and think, I cannot believe that they've created this amazing vehicle. It's incredible. So I'm interested in that side of things as well.
From your words, and we can feel the influence from your father and in your decision to have that space program, and also everything, and your love. I mean, sadly, he passed away when you were still so young. And how did that influence you, as you know, to be who you are today?
I think always the passing away of a parent is a terrible thing, and vice versa as well. It's terrible. But what I think the good thing that comes out of it is actually how precious it is just to be able to breathe. That in itself is a miracle, and that's the positive side I gained from this. And I think since that time I've had a sort of deeper understanding and love of living because of it, because I know how precious it is and how easily it can disappear.
Be more grateful.
Yes.
And love what you
well,
can
just
have.
do more with your life. Do as
Make
much
it
as you can to make it wonderful, because we've been given it, and what is around us, down to the tiniest particle, is just an incredible thing. It's a miracle.
Have you decided, you know, because you're going to sing in the space station, that's just outrageous. But have you decided what song you're going to pick and to sing?
I haven't. No, I haven't really gone into the... we can only go into sort of, you know, there are practicalities to this, and so far I can only go so far in that suggesting it, and I've asked various people who've been up, is it possible? One astronaut I was talking to a few weeks ago, he was actually at the Mir station, and he said, yes, it's absolutely possible. to do it. So he was, whereas I've asked another scientist who hasn't been up, he went, well, I'm not really sure with the lung capacity that you have and the way that you sing, whether you'll be capable in singing the way that you're normally used to. He said, I'm not quite sure.
I mean, when we look at your career, all these major events, all these hit songs and albums, and it's so long on the list. But what do you remember most, and what gave you the deepest impression about what happened in your career? Do you actually sometimes, would sit down in your sitting room and, look through all these major songs, hits, and yeah, that's pretty much a career I can imagine I could expect when I was little. Do you do that?
I look back at it and I feel sort of grateful for it. That's the feeling I get. I sometimes can't believe that it has been as wonderful as it has. But I'm quite sort of humble in the feeling that it has taken a huge amount of hard work, and that is the physical side of it. That has to be done, the training and the understanding. But it's also to understand that it's actually the smallest things in life, like sitting quietly with your cup of tea and being in a good moment and coming up or letting your imagination fly, and that one small idea that comes to you that can go from that to over there, that can go so far, which is actually, and come from the simplest moment or the simplest colour or the simplest feeling, are actually the most important things, because without that tiny little thread that happens at the beginning, none of all that can happen. So that's what it is.
We just wonder whether you had your little moments, little ideas as startups and to become, these bigger ideas in the future. What is your plan for your future, say?
The last part of my life is to, and it's actually the biggest thing to ask for is to have serenity and happiness and plenty of love around me and love myself. I think it's those things are the most important, because without them, passion doesn't come, life doesn't come, all of those things. And so they're the things that I'm hoping in my life, in the latter part of my life, I will have, because they're important.